Hello, 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 and welcome to Survivor NSFW Rewind, Professor Tim Watches Australian Outback. I am your host, Karen Eisenberg. Before I bring on my guests, as usual, I want to tell you that today I'm modeling the Survivor NSFW t-shirt that was drawn by Eric Reichenbach, who has been on Survivor season 16 and 26. I think I got that right. You can find this shirt and many others at johnnyfairplay.com. And remember, with every purchase, you get a call from the great Johnny Fairplay. That's Jonny, no H. I am, as always, joined by my co-host, Professor Tim Wilson. Tim, how are you doing today?
Hello, it's nice to be back. I feel we've had such a long week. Only 7 days, but it seems so much longer. And time. I've been writing stuff about time and about space and space-time and the hypercube and all these other wonderful things. So I'm in a world of my own at the moment, locked in some sort of temporal displacement. I'm in a TARDIS, I think. Oh, Kimmi, do you know about Doctor Who?
Yeah, let me bring Kimmi in. 1 second. Let me bring Kimmi in, and then I will get out of the way. So we are being joined, as I said last week, that our guest was going to be the person who was being eliminated in this episode. And so, of course, we are joined by the great Kimmi. It's Kappenberg-Bailey, correct?
Yes, I just go by Kappenberg. It doesn't matter. Bailey's there, yes.
But
we're good.
Yes, of Survivor Australian Outback and Second Chances. And feel free to let us know what else is going on with you. I know you're a football mom. It's football season.
It's football. That's all I do. My boys turned 12 and 14 over the summer. So, I have tweens and boys going through puberty and loving them. That stinky little hormone boys are also playing football. Like, yay, this is excellent.
But of course, you're not nasty about their bathing habits.
No. They are very. they bathe. They're very good bathers.
Yeah. But I was going to say, what by football you mean American football as opposed to
yes, not soccer football, the fake football.
No. But Kimmi, you must tell your boys that I live in Rugby, which is one of the places really where American football originates. It comes through rugby. And
excellent.
And I'm in the place where people picked up the ball and ran with it. For the first time, we have a pub at the end of the road, which is named after the fellow who allegedly picked up the ball for the first time. I'm sure he didn't. Yeah.
Excellent.
His name was Ellis. Yeah.
Well, eventually the boys will get there when they're old enough to drink. I have a little time before that happens.
Do they have all the shoulder gear and all the pads and bits and pieces?
Yes, and they wear girdles. That's what their little football padded pants are called, girdles. So I always make fun of them. I'm like, wonderful. You got your girdle.
It all sounds a little bit like La Cage aux Folles, doesn't it? It's
Yes, it does.
Oh my goodness. And what do they want to do in real life?
Oh, besides just beat up people on the football field?
Yeah, absolutely.
Eventually they're either the military or computer hacking, something that they can combine those things.
Both are admirable.
Yes.
They could be hackers for the military. I'm sure that
Exactly. So I'm very lucky.
Are they Mac hackers or Windows hackers?
I believe that they're both doing Windows now, but my older son, he's in a 4-year program that he started this year, and it's a computer hacking specialty class. So when he graduates high school, he'll have a whole bunch of certificates and stuff. So at home, we have Windows. They may do Mac stuff there as well. I don't know. All I know is that I'm not qualified to operate any of these machines, and I'm very thankful I have them at home, because I'm like, baby, what do I do?
I have two kids who majored in computer science, and the main argument for all the money I spent on this, was that when I have problems, I can call them, except I do use Mac and they do not. And so,
okay.
Yeah.
The real thing, I think, is not so much talk about hacking, but talking about this thing that lies behind everything, which is coding, and coding is a branch really of is one of the higher branches of mathematics. I mean, it's up there with econometrics and all these strange things. But where people are using statistics for things which weren't really, today, you know that we're using statistics so randomly, and all these amateurs like banks and politicians are sprouting out statistics as if it means something, and statistics is designed for mathematicians.
Yes, and you can just make them up sometimes, and just as long as you sound believable and credible, no one's going to doubt you. But the boys get to do some coding stuff too, so I'm very excited that they get to do all of that.
I'm so pleased. Well, the hacking is the fun, the coding is the serious work, and coding. I think all children should be doing coding, because it's a way to suddenly make mathematics interesting.
Yes,
mathematics is a wonderful language. It's not my thing. I don't really speak mathematics, but I know people who do. And
I speak money math.
You're clever lady. I see money and it sort of runs away from me. So I think money is like going to the zoo.
That's funny.
How are you getting on? How are you getting on with lockdown?
I'm so over this whole thing. I'm done. I've been over it. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that the boys have both been in football since June. Yeah. So they've been able to go out and run around, and my husband and I ride motorcycles. So we've been out. Yeah. So we've been out getting some wind therapy. But I mean, I'm very grateful that Florida, they allowed football sports to go on with the school over the summer, because they had 3 hours of practice starting, at the end last week of June, I believe. So 4 days, sometimes 5 days a week, they were doing it 3 hours a day, getting outside. So then I was able to go drive them and watch sometimes. So it was good. So it's not quite as terrible.
Tim, have you ever ridden a motorcycle?
I have, but not on the front bit. I've ridden on the back, and I enjoyed riding on the back. I spent a lot.
You were doing nuts to butt? You were doing riding on the back, sitting nuts to butt?
Well, yes, I think that probably is the expression, isn't it?
That is the expression, nuts to butt.
I try to ignore all the medical details, but yeah. I do remember one trip all the way from the top of England down to the bottom, and it was very exciting, really.
It is exciting. Exhilarating.
I liked the wind in my hair. There was a little more hair in those days, and but when I was in Greece, I thought it was much more exciting because I didn't have to wear a helmet, and it was very naughty, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is naughty. It is naughty. It feels so nice to ride without a helmet, but. I mean, I got my babies and stuff, and it's like I'm riding, and it's just there's enough crazies out there, and it's the stupidest things when people get into accidents, and it's not going to be worth it for me.
I wouldn't recommend it at all. But you
got your brain bucket.
I was on the top of hilltops in the middle of the 1980s, and I didn't know any better. Now I know better. I don't get anywhere near a motorbike. I see a motorbike, I run in the other direction. But I did enjoy it. I did enjoy it some years ago. I thought it was fun. You get a sense of speed, which you don't get you do on a bicycle if I'm riding downhill, because I
gravity helps you.
Great, whoomph. And there was a crossroads at the end of the hill, and I don't know how I didn't get killed. I mean,
when I was a kid, we had the same thing, but ours, it was fun also because you were coming around a curve. So we thought it was a great idea to just take your feet off the pedals and just run right down, go around the curve, and just, I guess, kind of hope nobody was coming the other way.
Yep.
We survived all these things we should not have survived.
No, we yes.
It's got a technical name in theology and philosophy. It's called providence. In real life, it's called stupidity.
Providence is so much more poetic.
I think so. You could also give it a Yiddish word, a chutzpah or something.
Yes.
There's a certain amount of class in just taking your feet off. It's a sort of James Bond class, don't you think? Now, what took you into Survivor? Why did you apply?
Okay, well, I had wanted to apply for the first season, so I
Do you
saw
know about it?
an ad. Yeah, I saw an ad in the Long Island newspaper about it, and my boyfriend at the time was like, "No, no, no, I don't want you going away and doing something like that." And I was like, "Huh." And I was kicking myself in the ass for not doing it. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to apply for the second one. And that's what I did. And at the time, I was producing TV commercials up in New York. My background was and schooling was in communication arts, and I was making some TV commercials. And so my boss went and we put together a 3-minute video, and it was so long ago that it was actually a VHS tape that you had to mail in. And of course I waited to the very last minute, but I was able to edit so many different parts of me. Like there was part of me, like I was like naked with my hands over my boobs running through the woods. And I was much more fitter then than I am now. I guess much more fit. That would be the word. But I was wearing a bikini and heels with a sign. And I was walking down the road in the Hamptons, and it said Australia or bust. And that's how I was able to open up my video.
You wore a bikini though also in Second Chances, right? And you looked fantastic. So
I was rocking the mom bod, and actually that was like my, I don't know, I think it was like Victoria's Secret sports bra and panties. I needed to get whatever had the most coverage. But you know what? It's to the point. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I put all my energy into my children that, you know what? I'm happy. I have them. I got a couple things that wiggle and jiggle. I don't care.
Yeah, you came with that mod bod seriously, right? I mean, you birthed them, and you know that's how it works.
Yep.
I was interested today for the first time. I was interested in the costumes on Survivor. No. There was a scene with Jeff sort of lounging around on a rock, and he was wearing what looked rather like boxers. And I thought, you know, in any normal program, one would sort of wear the pants under the boxers because things have a tendency to wiggle and jiggle there. Was he?
No, well, you know what? I wasn't really looking and checking up on everyone's bits over there, but
if I was on a beach with Varner, I would have been checking out his bits back then.
See, he's too little for me.
It's really a much more technical question about how. So we know you're stranded with a very small amount of costume. It's carefully arranged so that it is discreet.
Well, and if something does hang out, it's very nice that the TV has a way of pixelating magically over your naughty bits that are sitting out.
It's got 6 months or so to do the pixels. It's probably 1 pixel every week.
I mean, in Australia, I mean, there were a lot of differences between like the first couple seasons with wardrobes and stuff.
Let's talk about that, because I was going to say, you're saying that they don't have many costumes, Tim. They will have many, many, many fewer going forward. They got a lot of clothing in the first few seasons.
Yes. Right. And Australia was extremely cold at night. Like we were I
noticed, what was it? Who was it now? One girl suddenly turned up in black, and she looked like a sort of stowaway from the Avengers.
Yeah, I don't know which one that would be. I don't know the Avengers very well, but they.
If I don't make a note, it doesn't. I sound very random, but but fascinating. But anyway, so the other thing is, Karen, your T-shirt, Reichenbach.
Yes.
What relation does he have to Sherlock Holmes?
I do not have the reference. Is there I do not know my Sherlock Holmes very well.
Sherlock Holmes dies for the first time by falling off the Reichenbach Falls.
Oh.
So presumably it's the same family name. Terribly exciting. Anyway, right.
That could be the family history.
When we get to season 16 in about 4 years, we will ask her about that.
It's one a week, Kimmi. So look. The other thing that I was thinking of was what are you doing now? Are you still in advertising? Are you still, or are you just dedicated to supporting football?
Right now I'm doing footy ball. That's my whole life. Well, I had moved to Texas after New York, and I'm actually on my second marriage now. But my first marriage, when I had my boys, both of my boys were very sick when they were born. So I couldn't work, couldn't do anything. One had kidney disease, one was a preemie, came out feet first on my front lawn 11 weeks early. Oh, wow. I mean, they were, my older one.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
he must have been very small.
He was actually very big for a preemie. He was 3.5 pounds, but he was almost 11 weeks early. But
well, if you carried him to term, that was going to be one big baby.
Yes. We kind of grow them big around here. But so when I was in Texas, I had so many doctor's appointments, and when my son was an infant, my ex left. So I had 2 babies that were sick, and 1 month we had 28 doctor's appointments between therapies, blood work, whatever. So
and you've only got 2 years between them. So
22 months. That's right. They should have been just over 2 years. They should have been almost 25 months, over 24 months, but they were 22 months. But so I went into waiting tables because I'm like, I can't work a 9-to-5 job with all these doctor's appointments. So I'm like, I'm going to work in fine dining. And that's what I did, and made the money and came to Florida. And when
because
I came
on the program, you're not defined as somebody in advertising. You're defined as somebody who tends bars.
Yes. Well, I think with that,
this wasn't quite true.
Well, no, I've always tended bar because that's how I paid college and everything. I started with that, but I think if you, some other people I think had that kind of a background, but then I also feel like they don't want to say that there's people that were
in the media,
in the industry or whatever, if there was any kind of connection.
Right. They do this all the time. I mean, they don't make stuff up, but they will. Like they said, oh, you did this job once. That's what you're going to be on the show.
I've just watched the first, the first 25 minutes of the season that I was in for my show, finally.
He hasn't even watched his own season.
You're going to have to send it to me. Send me a link.
I'll send you a link.
Send me a link.
It's actually very good. It's beautifully made. But they said, Tim was a monk, and then he then he became a professor. Well, there was a long period between being a monk, and goat herding, and all manner of different things. Motorbiking, obviously.
Yes.
Well, if they had to give your entire, biography, Tim, it would have taken half an hour. They had to be selective. Tim has done everything.
We could have done it visually, and there was a wonderful thing. They had me sitting in a sort of circle in the DP before we started the game, and that was done about a week before we went up to shoot. And they wanted me to lie on my back in a circle and put my legs in the air and pretend that I was riding a bicycle. And I thought, how extraordinary! Obviously, they want to see my sock braces. And, no, they didn't. They then moved the circle round and round, so it looked as if I was propelling myself across the
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Everything that happens out there, you do and say, and just like I was producing TV commercials and in production, but of course, because I was a broke college, I just graduated from college, I still had to pay it, so I was still bartending. So you pick and choose what kind of fits the narrative, and I always like to tell people, like, when you're out there, especially back then, it was 3 full days of shooting for 1 hour episode, a 1 hour episode. That was each week. So when you have 72 hours of shooting, and then you take out like the credits, the commercials, tribal council, the challenges, you have maybe 10, 12 minutes to look at the personal lives of the people that are there. So they could show any aspect of it. So like, you could follow me around, and in the morning you could see me waking up my kids, and I sing to them, wake up, wake up, wake up, rise and shine. And I'm making them lunch and breakfast, and I'm taking their happy asses to football and picking them up. And, oh, you forgot something at school? Let me schlep my tail up there and get it to you, and doing everything. But then I just wash my floors and my kid comes in with muddy shoes. I go, get the hell out of my kitchen. I just washed that.
That's the bit where you
what are they showing? They're showing me yelling at my kid. If it doesn't, but that's what it is. So we all have like happy emotions and sad emotions out there, and it's just whatever kind of, whatever they feel like.
From advertising, from the media, television is all about telling a story. So if you're not telling a story, it doesn't matter how pretty you may be or what valuable things you might be doing. They want their story, and it has to string together with the story they've got in their minds about what you're going to do. I think it's all pretty well plotted before they start shooting, I'm afraid.
Well, I think based on personalities, the different thing about Survivor compared to some other, reality shows is that we are in a living environment. We are competing for, a prize that is going to change your life. $1 million will have a positive impact on somebody's life. It's not like we're going out there to win a husband or travel the world and have an adventure. I mean,
it will have an impact, Kimmi. I think your adjective may not be appropriate.
It's funny you say that, Tim, because Johnny Fairplay has said that if he had won the $1 million, back then in 2003 or whatever, he would not be alive today. Right.
Well,
because he would have spent that money on,
but I was very shocked meeting Richard Hatch. And I think his story is disturbing.
Well, I mean, and again, that's the problem. We all see little parts of what really goes on. I mean, it's the best thing about Survivor is that you have people that are out there playing that are from different education backgrounds, religious backgrounds, economic backgrounds.
Right.
Some people, they've lived in a very small town and never been anywhere. There are other people, and back then, especially because there wasn't the social media, there wasn't a lot of these things. We were treated like celebrities back then.
Yes.
Like I couldn't go into the local frickin', Eckerd's or whatever freaking drugstore I was going to buy tampons without somebody being like, oh my God, and buying a disposable camera to get a picture. I mean, we were really looked up to and stuff. And so you had some people that came with the hopes of Survivor was going to go and catapult them into something, that was going to be amazing and this big stardom. And it's, we're not curing cancer. We're not rocket scientists. We're game show contestants. And you have to remember that who you are and you're playing a game show. I mean, that's like saying somebody on Wheel of Fortune, I was on Wheel of Fortune. Somebody recognized me and, make me a millionaire, shooting movies. It's the mindset was very different for some people back then. And
I have a feeling with you,
their identifier.
It's not what you wanted, right? Or did you?
No,
I taken out of Long Island, or you were happy with what you were doing?
No, I was just like, okay, so we were there. It was October, and you're talking, this is almost 20 years ago, I guess about 20 years ago now, that I could be in New York, with the winter coming, or I could get a free vacation to Australia. Like, hell yeah, book me on a flight. Let's go. Let me see what I can do. I love summer camp. I love adventure. I want to go out there. Let me just, and I always tell people, when I played the first time, I was 27, single, knew it all from New York. The second time I played, I was a divorcee with 2 kids in my 40s and didn't know shit. You know what I mean? Because the older you get, the less that you realize that you don't know. Like,
exactly.
It's true.
So we were talking about something, and then I think we got distracted, as we often do. You were talking about the differences just between like what was it available to you, et cetera, in the 2 seasons, because Kimmi paid in season 2 and then again in season 31. So she is really almost uniquely qualified to talk about the difference between old school Survivor and new school Survivor.
Yes. Well, I like even the clothes. So the first that season in Australia, Reebok actually sponsored us. So we, all of a sudden, all of us got these big shipments of clothes from Reebok. I had probably 6-7 different pairs of sneakers to
Really?
choose from.
Nice.
Oh yeah, they were all in my size, but then it was like, take what you want. And so you had some of the shirts, like if you notice the black woolly sweatshirts that we were wearing, we all had the same one. Why? The Reebok was there. We were sponsored, and we had all of these items. And we had clothes to keep us warm. Now I think that Australia was particularly cold compared, in October and November, compared to like shooting in Fiji or in Cambodia in the springtime, because we were freezing. I mean, you see us, like, we're literally wearing like woolly beanie caps and gloves, and we had a lot more options of clothes.
But there have also been other locations where they probably were just this cold, but they've decided, partly because of lack of sponsorship, partly again because they want people in their bikinis and in their underwear as often as possible. So they just don't give people clothing.
I definitely agree with that. But I just think that, I mean, it was like we were wearing gloves there, and we were all freezing still. And like Cambodia wasn't like that.
It was the opposite. Cambodia was like 120 degrees, right?
Yeah, I mean, at night it got cold, but then of course we were there in the middle of monsoon season. So, we had 2 weeks of this Club Med bliss, and then it went to hell with 5 days of rain and torrential downpours, and you're just sitting like this and shivering.
That looked like as one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen on Survivor. Again, just because it went on for so long. It happens when people have a night like that. God. That happens frequently, but 5 straight days of that.
Well, and then you have nothing to talk about because you were literally all sitting on top of each other. You can't talk strategy. You can't really, like, I've been talking to these people for a couple of weeks. You're freezing. You're propping up against each other just to kind of stay up, and you're inventing stupid games to play, but you are bored to death. Because I like, everybody knows my kids' names. I know when your son took his first walk and first poopy diaper, and where you kissed your wife the first time. Like, I've heard all of it from every one of you. There is literally nothing else to talk about because you can't talk strategy when there's an 8x10 little shoebox that you're sitting in with 10, 15 other people.
Right.
And you're just sitting there.
Yeah. So Kimmi, you'll find out. So this is a game that you probably also want to play with the circle, because first of all, you don't have to talk to anybody. You don't want to, you're basically in an apartment. It's really like the 2020 game show, even though it started a few years earlier. So each person is in a separate apartment in this one building. And you can only communicate through this app, which they call the circle, which looks a lot like Facebook, Instagram, whatever. You can post pictures, you can post statuses, whatever. But when you're not having conversations, they were allowed to actually amuse themselves. People had books and puzzles, and Tim was drawing. And because I've heard from people, right, that, I mean, obviously the lack of food is difficult, the lack of sleep is difficult, but the boredom is also something that people really don't pick up on in terms of just how difficult that can be.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's very... Go ahead, Tim. Sorry.
No, I'm just going to say I've spoken to people who've talked about the boredom. I didn't find myself bored, though. I was very pleased to leave when I did. Right. But I have an incredibly vibrant inner life. There's about 40 people.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, people even on my point is that people do complain about even spending 2 weeks in a fully stocked apartment, right? And to me that's a vacation, right? But a lot of people did find it difficult.
Yes, just hold me off. Let me go on my bookshelf. I have books upon books. I'll read. Leave me alone, and I am good. I am good. If when it wasn't raining, it was great. I mean, I'd walk around, I'd go fish, I'd go explore, I'd go whatever. Because, I mean, you're in this beautiful place. At night, you'd see stars. And in Australia, you could watch the bats flying over at the same time every night. It's just, you have these great, wonderful, fun things to go and do. It would be preferred if you could share it with somebody else that you liked, right. Or there would be times when I'd rather be by myself than some of the people that I was there with. It's like.
Did you find you made connections for life with any of the other contestants or with the crew?
Yeah, I mean,
who are you still in touch with?
It's funny. I mean, because for me now with Australia, I mean, this is like 20 years ago. There are some people that I talk to, like when this happened, when this was going on the first couple of years after, like I hung out with Mitchell and Jeff Varner because we all lived in New York. So we'd go into the city together. We'd do things. There was a lot more charity events that we were invited to. So it's like, okay, let's all go. And we would do that. And then like Jervis, who was on the season before us, he was in Jersey. So I used to go to his events and I would hang out with him. And now, of course, with Facebook, like we'll stay in touch, but it's not the phone calls that it used to be.
Right.
You know, because life happens.
Well, like I said, not just people scatter, but also, like I said, now you have children who have to be driven to football practice. It's different. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we shared a very unique bond. I mean, there's less than 600 of us that have done it, I think. I don't know, but give or take.
Right.
So we shared this really unique opportunity and experience that we can understand. And we have a special empathy for each other, when you see somebody going through it that we can get. But a lot of them, because like I originally said, they're not people that you would pick to be your friends. It's not that I hate them, but if we don't have a lot of things in common, it's like, okay, like there were some people that were making it their mission was, okay, this person was my tribe mate. We have to go and stay and be in touch and everything. It's like, look, I have my sister in New York that I barely get to see. It's more important that I see her, someone that I actually like, and I miss, than you. If we happen to be at the same place, great. But if you're not my BFF ass buddy, then I really don't need to, go out of my way to see you. But like, hey, I'm going to be in Jersey. Are you around? Great. Let's get together.
Yeah. Would you encourage your children to do it?
Oh, of course. I think so. They would love to do it. But there's
and it's interesting because I think a lot of people would look at your arc in Australia and say, as somebody who maybe didn't have a great experience, might not have been happy with the way they were portrayed. So I wanted to ask you about that. But, you feel like you had a good enough experience that you want your kids to do it. So it couldn't have been, what was it like?
It's that challenging opportunity and what you do to go and prove yourself out there. I think I was way too nice the first time that I played, even though, I had my little argument with Alicia.
Right. So let's talk about that, because it's clear to me that, I don't know whether they found you first or Scoopin first, but they had, here we've got a vegetarian, and then we've got somebody who, not only eats meat, but likes to smear blood on his face. Let's put them on the same tribe. And then you take Alicia, right? And she's also a New Yorker, right? So
she's from Connecticut who lived in New York. Okay. That's, again, how they go and they modify what you see.
Right. But she's a personal trainer again, used to telling people what to do and having them respond. And clearly that was not going to fly with you.
No. Right. And the funny thing is that Alicia actually, it was me, Alicia, and Jeff, who on our season, when it came out on DVD, they let us watch it together, and they would do like, they had also our audio commentary on the episodes. And Alicia said, it was interesting. But Alicia said, no, Kimmi was actually right. We should not have eaten the chickens every day if we were catching the fish. She goes, but I wasn't going to tell her she was right. Because I wasn't saying don't eat the chickens. But I was taking such good care of those chickens that I was actually getting eggs every day. Okay. A lot of seasons you don't get eggs. So I had eggs that was at least a protein. Why would you eat protein on a day that you don't have a challenge? Why wouldn't you spend that time fishing?
And they also had the pig, right? How long did the pork last after that?
I think that was just a couple of days.
Yeah, because you can't keep it. I mean, it's going to go bad.
They were trying to make it into like a jerky, but that was kind of hard. But yeah, so Mike with the chickens, and even with the chickens, Jeff Varner was saying, oh, she's naming the chickens. I didn't name the chickens. When we won the chickens had name tags.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
There was
And
a
I'm also
Polly and a
assuming-
Henrietta.
And I have a feeling that they did that deliberately, because I think, any farmer would tell you don't name something
Right.
you're going to eat. So
Right.
they wanted to kind of build up this. They were hoping, and they probably knew, especially with you, but even if somebody's not a vegetarian,
Yes.
let's name them. Let's hope that somebody develops a relationship with them so we can have
But
some conflict.
they didn't name the cockerel.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But
Did the
no-
rooster have a name? Because we didn't see it on the episode.
There was no name.
I'm
no
sure it
tag.
did. I don't know.
Really?
Golly.
It's been
I
20
can't remember.
years.
Yeah, it's been 20 years. I got a lot going on up here.
Kimmi, the impression I got from all that naming of the chicken stuff and that sort of attack, the attack about the chickens and the attack about the water was that you were being bullied.
I guess a lot of it was going on behind my back and not just to me, but it was, look, I'm a person, you're going to take me or leave me, but you're not, but I was doing the water every day there. Okay.
Yeah.
Where I was going down, filling up the water jugs. We are all camping. Okay. Nobody comes home. I don't care how many times you're in Crocodile Creek.
Mm-hmm.
You still stink. Your clothes stink. Your stuff, when you fly home from halfway across the world, you wash it 3 times and it still stinks. We were camping. You know what I mean?
Right.
I looked after goats for a fair amount of time, 100 goats, and when I got on when I came back to the UK and I got a job in Stamford Hill in London, people used to move away from me in the tube. And I realised for about a month or so after I came back, I was still fairly high with the smell of goat. I think
that's very funny. I mean, but see, you were being a good shepherd. I mean, I was just doing the humane thing with the chickens, because any farmer will tell you have to take care of your livestock. You don't just neglect them. They're not going to produce eggs if they're not taken care of. Your goats aren't going to be happy in producing milk or, being healthy if you don't take care of them.
I named all the goats after people I knew in the village. So a lot of the boys who didn't live very long, unfortunately, they were sent off for baptisms and funerals and weddings, and they were all.
They went up to the mountain.
Yeah,
it was all.
They went up the mountain.
Yeah, it was
and
all
didn't come back. Yeah.
It was so sad, the music, but without all the without the happy ending for those anyway. I think. Joyous life.
Yeah. So, Kimmi, I was wondering though with Scoopin'. I mean, clearly, there was some conflict, but how much of this were you aware of during the show versus what you had to go back and watch? Because that's also got to be hard to hear what people were saying about you.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it sucks because we all say things about each other. Everybody does. I mean, I'm just not as. Look, I have a very sharp tongue, and I can say things, and I know that. When you say something, that can really hurt somebody more than a punch in the face. So I still try to, be nice and tactful. Scoopin' just had an arrogance there, but it was funny because you'll see multiple times I actually was in the water. Mm-hmm. We jumped off the cliff. Yes, I'm a little bit dirty. We're camping. All right. But you have to be, oh yeah, I'm so glad you won. So Kimmi could take a bath. All right. Yeah. All right, Mike.
And then when we had the shot of the whole tribe, you were in the tribe with everybody else and you were soaping yourself up.
What had happened was after we did the cliff jump, the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, when we were jumping, there were some leeches that were in the water, very little ones. And that's when, and I'm a water bug. I mean, I grew up on Long Island, but I am a saltwater person. Mm-hmm. Lake water freaks me the fuck out.
And especially when there are animals that are, right there and defecating it and everything else. I completely understood your point.
Mike just went and was throwing the pig guts in there. There's leeches. I don't want leeches up in my lady bits. That's the stuff that once I get that in my head. However, you can drive 5 miles offshore and go fishing, and I'll go jumping in the middle of the shark, because salt water makes sense to me. Fresh water is a complete mind fuck. I just don't like it. Like in Texas and in Florida, you have your water moccasins and rattlesnakes, and I'd rather play with sharks. It's just, I think some of the other thing goes for people as well. People that grow up inland with ponds and lakes and streams, they freak out because they saw Jaws. You know what I mean? And they don't have that connection. But to me, the ocean is peace.
I'm still terrified.
Part of it might be about what you're used to. But again, if I knew there was leeches, I would not be bathing either.
It just, it didn't but it's funny. Like Jeff Varner was saying when Scoopin was catching fish. Oh, but when Scoopin, we've all caught fish. We're all going fishing. But as soon as Scoopin gets it, it's like, oh, the trumpets are blaring and the angels are singing, because that's what he needed to get the pat on his back when he got the pig.
Yeah, but
he's doing the war paint and everything else on it. And it's
he made sure, as you know, he made sure that he was telling a story with those images and they could not be ignored. And that's what he was playing for the camera again and again and again. And it was obvious. And more than that, I really think there were a few camera people who were sort of buddying along with him, because he was always there at the moment. And how they got that shot of him slaughtering the pig, I have no idea, unless it's planned.
They're supposed to have people around, but I feel like just production was a little bit different back then than it is now. Like the thing that upsets me a lot in the first season that I played in Australia was when you look at the two challenges, you had the reward challenge and the immunity challenge.
Yeah.
And when you go and watch the reward challenge, two people had to sit out. Me and Roger sat out. Okay. Because you the teams have to be even. Well, then on the immunity challenge, we had two extra people.
Right.
And Jeff says, Prope says, well, there's no advantage or disadvantage to having extra people. Are you fucking out of your mind?
Yeah.
Of course there's a disadvantage, because you have 5 people that have to basically go and, you're making a snake around these columns and everything to get through this maze.
Yep.
So 5 people are going to get there sooner than 7 people. 7 people, of course, there's more of a chance of tripping up and everything. So I feel like it was manipulated, completely freaking manipulated, and it pisses me off.
I did have a question though with that, because when your tribe chose to sit you and Roger out, which I understood, but that's a reward challenge. So I would have thought that the immunity challenge, generally, that's the one that is, more serious, more important. Who did they know when they made that decision for the reward challenge that everybody was going to play the immunity, or who they were going to sit out? It was just, it was a very weird decision.
No, I think because I'm a much bigger girl than the rest of the girls in my tribe. I'm not just saying weight, but I did outweigh them, but I was physically taller. And so you can carry these other people around. So I was an appropriate choice to be sat out. Right. However, any 2 people, even now they say you can't sit out the same two players unless, of course, your name is Sandra. Then you can sit the same player out back to back.
Oh, but that rule was not in effect, so you could have sat out also.
Or 2 people could have sat out. I just feel like
it doesn't have to be different people,
right? But I just feel like it's just like hurting any 5 people. If 5 people have to come and stand at a pole before you can go and take your medallion, waiting for 7 people to get there, it's killing time. And maybe it just be fractions of a second, or just a few seconds each time, but cumulatively, if I can speak,
one of those people getting slightly lost.
So let me take a step back. Let's go through the episode kind of chronologically. We've already hit a couple of the points, but the first thing I want to talk to you about, and we talked about with Scoopin', and it's funny with him because, I remember going back now, I hadn't rewatched the season in many, many years. And even when he came back on Philippines, I was like, he wasn't this weird. I mean, maybe he was, but they didn't show it to us. But he says something at the beginning of the episode. He says that you shouldn't have been so theatrical about the chick. It was fine.
Horrible.
As he puts on his war paint.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
He-
is there any truth to it, though, in terms of, any risk of alienating your tribe? Because again, on the one hand, I do eat meat, but I totally understand your decision not to. But when you are on the island, somebody's going to have to go home every 3 days.
Yes.
Is there something for just, even though he was in the wrong, is there something for just suck it up, Buttercup, and not make an issue? Or
absolutely. I think production made more of an issue than it really was, because like the few couple things, because I don't give a shit if people eat meat. I don't. Like, my husband eats meat. I will cook it for you. I have a problem making meatballs. I got to put gloves on because it grosses me the hell out. But I have never, ever said, don't eat this, don't do that. I will help you. However, with that, when you're also being asked by production, tell us about the thing. Or,
that was my question. I'm assuming that they wanted to play this up between the two of you.
Yes, I think to some degree. But if you notice, I'm the one that helped win the damn chickens. Those people don't know how to do puzzles. I did the damn puzzle to get the freaking chicken. So
and you also ate the worm.
Yes. So, see, I ate the worm. I wouldn't eat the brain. But like, I go about my life and do things. Like, you want to ask me and say, okay, here, I don't eat meat. This is what I do. I'll eat seafood. I'm a pescatarian, but that's it. But then it's like, well, why? Or whatever. Or, okay, yeah. So I got up and said, okay, bye-bye, little chickens. Those are the things that when you're 27 and like I was saying, like, it all.
Yeah. And then the season after you, you've got Ty, neighbors names the chicken after his boyfriend and carries him around all season.
Yes. I mean, but that's the thing. It depends on who you're with. And I'm going to tell you something. Every day that you're out there, somebody else hates you. You know what I mean? Like, I could be enemy of the state #1, but like, if we won, let's say we won that immunity challenge, the next day, and I was there, it could have been Scoopin', it could have been Alicia, it could have been Elizabeth. Like, okay, well, this stupid idiot is doing this, or somebody went and just every day somebody can rub the whole tribe the wrong way with a statement, an action.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yeah,
so
that's why you just have.
It changes.
Just if you can survive that 3-day cycle, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in trouble the next time.
Right. And that was something that I learned was to, the second time I played, I was able to keep my mouth shut. It's, you ask me my opinion, I'm going to give it to you, and I'm going to get the hell out of Dodge. And that's what I did. I'm not going to go sit there, but that's stuff that you learn.
Do you think you got off to a bad start in the tent at the beginning? Right, beginning of the
okay, and that is another thing. Let me tell you something. Everybody was talking. Okay,
I'm sure they were.
There was all kinds of conversation. It's not like it was the Kimmi Kappenberg show where I just got up there and was like, okay, let me talk about masturbation and sex toy, whatever. Okay. They were talking about farting and sex positions and all this other stuff. And so, all right, I'm rolling with it with you. But, I think for viewers and again, some of the edit, everything I said and did, I did do and say. But you have Roger, who's a very nice Christian man who's there. And then you have me, the loudmouth New Yorker who's single, talking about, circumcision and penises, So it's like, okay, you can see him getting a little cringy. And it makes for, there's so many different elements that each person brings in that production really doesn't have to manipulate anything on these shows because there's enough.
Right. If you cast it well, you don't really have to play anything up. I do believe that you and Scoopin' and Alicia on an island probably didn't get along all the time, and that's what they want.
Of course.
I'm surprised in a way they let you go because because that animosity between you and Alicia was worth about 5 programs.
Well, yeah.
How long did we see the entire conflict, Kimmi, or did it go on beyond that? Because it really was not such a, again, when I go back and rewatch it, I'm like, I remembered this much bigger than it was.
Yes. Well, because that was like the big thing. I mean, it was a slow news day for a while back there, apparently. Right. And reality TV was new. Right. So, I mean, the fight it was just a stupid little argument that went back and forth for a little bit. But again, that's something that you say and you're done, and it's gone and over with. I
must say, to your credit, I played it twice. The second time, and the second time I played it with the sound off, and you come off visually as much nicer. Alicia was standing there posturing, and he looks really quite aggressive.
Well, she was, but the thing that I always that I joke about with Alicia and me, if we ever got in a fight, I'm a lot taller than she is, so I always say that I could just put my finger out and poke her on her forehead, and she'd never even be able to reach me. She'd be punching in the air.
Most of the time in that fight, you're sitting down, or she's standing above you.
Yes.
It's very interestingly framed. I'm afraid you were set up. That's my professional opinion. You were set up to have that fight.
Well, I would concur with that observation that there was.
Yeah. On the other hand, I'm not sure a 27-year-old Kimmi really needed to be set up. Again, that's the difference between your first time and your second time.
Maybe you would somebody that production took advantage of the opportunity, but
it wasn't set up like that. I think the way that I can describe it is that back then when we did our interviews, our one-on-one interviews, in production, they just kind of pulled you aside and asked and talked to you about things. It wasn't like it is now where they're doing more with the lighting and the reflector. So it would be like, okay, so how do you really feel about Kimmi not eating meat? Or how do you feel about, you know what I mean?
And would you, would other people
just more rehashing it? I would say that production, they're not manipulating in the sense of telling you what to say or do, but they're it's almost like antagonizing you a little bit more to get it burning in your head. Like, okay, so why would you fight? Would you fight her? Would you argue with her again? Or, what I mean? Like that, where now it's like stewing in your brain a little bit.
Right.
Two things. Number one, we all know magicians. They don't tell you what to do, but they present you with choices. You have no choice. You choose the card they want you to choose. That is the level of manipulation I'm thinking of, number one. But number two, far more importantly, because I don't know the answer to this, is when they were asking you these questions, could other people hear you answering?
No, because they pull you off. Yeah, they pull you off into like an area. Now, again, back then, sometimes you might just be like a little bit on the side of camp where you could still see people walking in the background or whatever. And, they might say, oh, what do you think they're doing? Whereas now it's a lot more isolated when you go and you have your confessionals and your production conversations. They are completely isolated in another area totally. Whereas it was a little bit more of like the man on the street kind of thing sometimes in Australia, where it's like, hey, quick, I can kind of get you in over here. What do you think about this?
Right. But that's the thing, Tim. I really do feel like they do much. I mean, I'm obviously they manipulate sometimes, but I don't think that there's as much manipulation as sometimes Tim thinks, I think, because if you cast this well, right, if you get the right people and you put the right people together, you really don't have to do much beyond that. And like I said, they'll ask you some leading questions.
Yes.
But that is manipulation too, Karen.
Of course. Well, that's the thing. You set up. That's the whole point with reality. You set up this artificial reality.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I would also say that the way that they manipulate is not doing everything consecutively.
Of course.
Yes.
When they air it versus when they shoot it.
Were there any situations like this in this season that you can point to?
Well, just even when I had my conversation the conversation that I had, I can't remember it right now, but when they were talking about the meat, and I was sitting there and I was saying, okay, well, I haven't eaten this in this many years or whatever.
Right.
I had said that stuff after the win instead of before.
Right.
Or
well,
they you know what I mean? So
Right.
the timeline is still off. It's again, it's everything I did do and say. Did it go and alter the outcome? No, but they are still, the timeline's off.
Right.
Well, there was a very interesting documentary about 2 years. No, actually, it's longer. It's about 4 years ago now, called which produced a thing which in Britain we call Crown Gate, I think. And they did a fly on the wall series about the Queen, and they had her being photographed by an American photographer, I forget who, quite famous. And in the trailer, they had this scene where the photographer was asking her to do various things, and then she storms off in what looks like a huff with a crown on. And it caused quite a sensation. We thought, the Queen's angry. And it was quite sensational. Of course, we all watched it as a result of that trailer.
Right.
And what we found in the show was that scene of her walking was before she got to the photo shoot. And the whole thing had been re-edited to give the impression that the Queen was having a temper.
Yes,
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
What's interesting for me was one of the people who was one of the producers on that was the man who produces the reality show that I was on, The Circle.
Okay.
He set up his studio. Partly there was a very interesting newspaper article about it, saying that he was setting up his studio partly as a sort of response to this misediting, to this. But yet I've heard people complain that they were edited out of sequence in my show. I don't know because I've not watched enough of it, so I can't. But I would think that editing things to make a good story is what you do as a producer.
Right.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
And I only have a problem with it again, because they're basically, the story that they told about you, I feel like, not talking about Scoop and the fact that you needed a bath, but the whole thing with you and the chickens, and it sounds like you're saying it was true. It was edited in certain ways, whatever.
Yeah.
But basically, the story they told about you was accurate. So that's true. I don't really care if they play with the timeline.
Right. Well, he needed his mouth washed out with soap. That's for damn sure. But again, so all that you saw was probably the whole entire brouhaha, while we were out there. So while you're out there, it doesn't make for very long, that's just a snap of your fingers in time. However, on the TV show, where now, again, after the commercials, the editing and everything else, that took up a large portion of the whole episode.
Of course.
So when you're looking at it like that, you're like, damn, that bitch never shut her damn mouth up about things. But when in reality, you saw that was it. Ta-da! That's it.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is what has been your relationship with Alicia after the show?
There is none.
Oh right,
there is none.
I'm slightly sorry to hear that, because I had this big confrontation with one of the characters in my show, pretending to be a single mother with child, like the Virgin Mary, and he was actually called James, and the show sort of pitted us against each other, rather like sort of the end of one of these magnificent Western films. And I thankfully I was the fellow with the white hat, and he was the fellow with the black hat, and it was Pistols at Dawn. But James and I, we are such good friends, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, but more than that, we developed that friendship on the show. It was just that the show. That wasn't the story the show wanted to present. So those conversations we had, which were incredibly warm, were never aired. And the conversations we had, which were aired, were those conversations where I was getting very close to identifying the fact that he was lying.
No, that's definitely true. I mean, you know that they show, right, not even 5% of what happens out there. So clearly I feel like most of the manipulation of the story that they do is just in terms of what they do and don't show more than even the timeline.
Yeah,
this is what we decide is important.
Of the magician.
Yes. I mean, they're not manipulating, like suggesting, hey, go and do this or that. But I noticed more in my second season. I had relationships with people that were very significant that were never even shown.
Yes, of
course.
Like
never even shown. I was just like invisible. And it's like, what the hell?
Tim can put his fingers in his ears for the next 15 seconds because we're not going to get to second chance from what we said like 7 years from now. Fishback has said that if you had gotten to the finals in second chances, you would have won. And same thing, like we didn't see any of that, but it's clear that you were making relationships to that extent that people, like I said, people are saying you should have won, and we saw none of it.
Yes. And Fishback and I were very close. And that was something that, his friendship was very special to me.
You can listen now.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they didn't edit you as a major character. In that season,
and that's okay. It is what it is. I got to be out there, and I still had my adventure. I still got my check and brought it home, and I got to meet people and do things, and share things with my boys, and use it as a life lesson of what. Sometimes you want something, and the timing isn't right, and sometimes you do get a second chance, and you just bust your ass to do it.
Right. Right. Completely.
Did you feel in the first season that you were being showcased that you were sort of a star of this first season?
I was a memorable person, I will say.
Yeah, for somebody who doesn't even make the merge, right? She was a very big character.
Yes,
there are people who I've had to keep going back to my list of who's on it to work out who they are. And I wasn't having to do that with you. So you were there, iconically.
I was. Thank you.
In fact, you pretty well had a major scene in every single episode you were in.
I had some. I think that I had significant.
Well, you've got the nighttime conversations. You've got the worm.
I got the worm.
You've got the whole
I got the fight.
Aspect. You've got the fight. They
were very memorable. Yes.
It's extraordinary because in your tribe you've got Michael, who is trying to dominate and is dominating in many ways.
I'm a little bit more subtle. That's the demure lady part of me. I'm very subtle.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go through your tribes. We've already hit on some of it. But just with Kucha,
we're normally so much better, Kimmi. By the time we get to about halfway through, Karen has pulled.
I'm gonna send you my Adderall so you can fuck us. Okay, fuck us. Take some medicine.
Yeah, but what is? How do they do this? I give you like a rapid fire. I'm going to ask you about the people in your tribe and just one word describe them. So first of all, we have to ask about Scoopin'.
Crazy.
Yeah, maybe hard to do that in one word.
Yeah. Not as he seems.
Are there any stories about him from Australian Outback that we didn't hear about?
He just when we were out there and he was talking about his family and home, he's sitting there talking about, oh yeah, he reminded us of, he was very nice. And I actually got along with Scoopin', which was, I think that's what hurt so much to hear what he was saying about me. Cause it's like, dude, we talked. And he was,
if Alicia had said some of those things, we would have been like, whatever. But if this is somebody who you thought was your friend out there, then that's got to be really hard to hear.
Yes, but he was talking about how his wife lives in the one house, And then his ex-wife lives in the house next to them. And then they have like this compound, and he was calling it a compound for the kids and everything. And you know what? I'm all for, parents loving their kids and getting along. But just the way he was describing it was like a little David Koresh-ish, if that's a word. He's sitting there.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, he really wasn't that interesting. He was full of himself with certain things. I mean, he's very accomplished in bullshit, and he liked to hear himself talk and could tell a story, which is nice when you're out there,
Right. And then the next one is Varner, who I feel like really did do a great job in Confessions about scooping down more than once. It was great. So what was your experience with him out there?
He's just a little ball of energy and enthusiasm.
Which one is Varner?
Jeff Varner.
Jeff. Got it. Jeff.
Yeah, he's very animated and stuff. He tried to play more in the shadows because he wasn't as strong as he appeared to be. And I'm saying that like physically and mentally. I mean, he was eager and he's a great distraction, but it's not like you'd go to him to be like, okay, he's going to build something. He's going to do something else. He was great comic relief out there.
Right. And sometimes I feel like you need that to make a TV show. You have, people who are building the shelter, and then people who are sitting off to the side, making fun of the people who are building the shelter.
Yes.
What about Nick? Because he seems to spend a lot of time sitting on his bench.
Yeah.
Yes, that was his little thinking bench, and that's the thing. Nick was very quiet, and the funny thing is after we got voted off, and he was in the military and doing things, he and I emailed for probably a couple of years, just regular, hey, just thinking of you, how you doing? And we weren't close out there, but I respected him.
So he was in the military as well as Kel.
Yes.
Oh, right. And we didn't see any of that. I did not know that Nick had been in the military.
Yes.
Because like you said, they make very simple stories for people who often have, more complicated biographies.
Yes. And Kel, he actually stayed at my house for a couple of days, and we went out.
I had Kel marked down as one of the potential winners, along with Mad Dog.
I feel like Kel got
shafted.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
If you are ever in touch with him now, can you say that he has a great fan in the UK?
I was thinking about that. I'll have to check old emails and phone numbers because I was thinking about him not long ago. It's just, again, somebody that drifted away. But I would love to talk to him. Yes.
He had so much potential, I felt, and it just wasn't. It didn't go anywhere. Also, I'm very interested about what he was eating.
Oh God, I just feel like back then, especially, it's almost like that lynch mob mentality of instead of standing up for your own. Okay, this is what I want. It was better them instead of me. Okay, if they're gonna go and stone somebody to death, I'm gonna. I might not throw a big stone. I might throw a grain of sand, but as long as they're not throwing that stone at my head, I'm good. And I think it was more that lynch mob mentality back then.
I feel it's that bit of the game which I find really very distasteful, and I just think it's one of the reasons why I would be reluctant to play it. Otherwise, count me in. But I would subvert it. Of course, I would find friends, and I would. Right. And I would turn them all against everybody else, and I would think back on what's been happening.
Right.
So the stones thrown by me.
Yeah. So the rest of your tribe, I think you're going to know the answer to this, but what was your opinion of Deb?
Okay.
What we saw on the show, or
Deb out there. Now, this is where I might be a little bit guilty of lynch mob mentality because I would have, from the beginning, I'd rather have gotten rid of Alicia. Okay, from the beginning.
Yeah.
But
So YouTube
Deb
crashed
is actually
from the beginning.
smart. Yes, Deb is actually was very smart with how she did things, and she at least tried to learn and apply things out there. Of course, her communication skills weren't always the best. Deb is actually somebody that I text frequently. Well, not frequently, but we message on Facebook and whatnot. And her doggy's having surgery today. I mean, so I have a lot of guilt, and then
I'd love to talk to Deb. I assume she does not want to talk about Survivor, but if she does, that would be lovely.
I'll let her. We'll see. I'll let her know. But what is it, like a doodle? Some kind of a doodle dog, like the tall, big Labradoodle,
like doodle, or
yes,
something like that.
Something like that. Yes. Nora's the dog's name.
Nora's the dog.
But I mean, so Deb, I feel like, okay, everybody else is going to vote for Deb. Like when they asked me, I said, I'll probably vote for Deb, when in actuality, she was stronger physically than Elizabeth. But again, I didn't go out there to play the game. I went out there for an adventure. My mind was completely different the second time I played. And then, of course, being from New York, like when I first go out somewhere, everybody's not my friend. Like I need to kind of sit and see how you are for a couple of days before I make a decision. Like I'll have an initial feeling, but I got to kind of feel people out and who's going to have my back. But Survivor is so fast paced that you don't really have that luxury. And I think that Deb would have been a way more loyal person. Had given the opportunity.
She didn't come across well at all in that first episode.
No.
Right.
But she was trying, though. She was trying things. She, okay, we got to go this way. She was more ambitious than some of the others. But okay, keep going.
What about Roger?
Yeah, what about Roger? Tim likes Roger quite a bit. So do I. But tell me what Roger's really like. He is really kind.
He's very kind, very sweet. I haven't went to his house after some charity thing, within the first couple of years. He just a very kind, just a good soul. Like everybody wants a Roger in their family. You know what I mean? It's like, just, he has wisdom. He has good character, just a good nature, not a judgmental kind of person. So I'm sure that this was kind of like a hard thing to be thrown into when everybody's spiraling around you.
Right. And then speaking of judgmental, what about Elizabeth?
Elizabeth back then, the way is very innocent. You know what I mean? Because she was very young and she had a great family and went to college. So kind of like sheltered and innocent with just like her own little community, which that's great, because that's what you should be at that age. You shouldn't have all these horrors of the world experiences, breaking you down. I think back then she was just very good natured, very sweet, just a nice young girl.
Can I ask about one person from the other tribe who you may have come across?
Yes.
I'm trying to work out who I think is going to win. So you're not allowed to tell me who is, but you are allowed to answer my direct question. Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting all squishy with this thing. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, this is me. Colby, what about him?
Is he any good? He's a
good. Okay, Colby is a Texan. I love Texas. I lived in Texas, and I love me a Texas man because they're very loyal, kind, salt of the earth people. Also, they're good people.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. You see, I have to put my cards on the table. I don't see anybody from Kucha winning, which is really
well. I'm going to tell you why. Because after I got voted out, I did the Kucha Kimmi curse. So it was kind of like when it was like my big F you to everybody. It's like, I hope, everybody tries to be all nice. And in my head, I'm going, I hope you all fucking lose. That's really how you feel. I mean, it's like, come on. It's not, it's bullshit. It's like, hey, good luck, guys. But in my head, I was
surprised because I was kind of hoping that you were going to actually give us one more Kimmi zing on the way out. But you didn't. You know what to say. You were very diplomatic.
Well,
yeah, sorry.
No, but part of the problem is back then it's like I had my dad watching, okay? So it's like, okay, great. Now I'm talking about masturbation on TV, and then you're watching the premiere episode of my father sitting 3 feet away from me and talking about masturbation. And it's like, okay, well, how many zingers and things can I do to go and embarrass my father? I mean, Kappenberg is not a common name. So, my poor father signing a check at the bank, it'll be, hey, Mr. Kappenberg, wait, is Kimmi Kappenberg your foul-mouthed daughter on TV? I couldn't do that to my daddy.
I think the point is that your memorable daughter on TV?
Yes.
Which is so much better. You're memorable. That's a good thing, I think.
Well, and if you compare me from then 20 years ago to what's on regular TV and socially acceptable now, I am as tame as they come. I'm like a little church mouse over there.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And even on, unfortunately, you didn't get the real, villain edit because that was saved for Jerry. But same thing, if you compare, we're going to see the rest of the season, but there's nothing that Jerry does that compares to, things that happen routinely in modern Survivor, but she was set up as she's the villain.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
So just go quickly through the two challenges. Can
I just add one last thing? I'm sorry. I'm going back to the very end. I was a bit disappointed. You sort of slunk away.
I know.
Did you feel you were sort of being propelled across the bridge and being? There wasn't a great outpouring. There weren't any hugs. There was sort of and off you went.
I can tell you, like, even it's very hard to always watch it. It just is when you get voted off. Like me. When I watch it, I get choked up. And for me up there, it's like there's all kinds of things that you want to say and do. But it's like I felt humiliated. I felt like I let my parents down. Like I was an embarrassment to my family, that I only lasted 15 days. And all of a sudden, all that like a wave, like going to tribal council, I'm like, okay, it's probably me.
I was going to say, were you aware going in that you were in trouble?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, okay, my head's on the chopping block. I'm not a fucking idiot. I'm right here. I see everything. So I was not surprised, but that still doesn't take away from the disappointment.
Of course.
Roger said he wouldn't vote for you, and then he did.
Well, I mean, they also have to make the viewer think that there's, that it's not going to be a shutout with one person getting voted out. So I think that they always make sure that, okay, well, who else would you vote for? Hey,
right.
if you, who are your two top picks? Why would you vote out Kimmi? Or, why would you vote out Alicia? If that's who you thought. And you give it in that hypothetical perspective.
Right. And I would also just think, even without production saying anything, that, you have to realize that if everybody else is voting for somebody, maybe it's better for your game to just go along with it.
Well, and that's it, because then it's like, okay, well, you're against me. Why didn't you vote with the rest of us?
Right.
Okay, well, all right, you do it not to create the waves. And that's why I'm saying, like, I kind of got into that mob mentality with voting Deb out, because it's like, all right, well, yeah, Deb can be a pain in the ass. Hell, we all can be a pain in the ass. Scoopin's a pain in the ass, but you know what? He's a big pain in the ass that'll help us win physical challenges. So, okay,
he wasn't so good in the carrying.
No.
Yeah. So let's go back to that challenge. Now, again, Kimmi didn't participate in it, but. So Tim, what was your question about that? Let's just go quickly through the episode, because people do think that like we actually hit a bunch of the things that I wanted to talk about today. But so they have to build a stretcher, right? And then they run around. Oh, and then they have to pick, but they got to pick their prizes, right? And this is the first time we're going to see this in Survivor. And this is the only thing that surprised me with this. So Kucha at least picks out the blankets.
Yes.
Right? They asked for spices. Ogakor didn't even ask for blankets. They wanted spices and soup mix. So again, Kimmi, were you on board in terms of getting the spices? And I understand, I'm sure it's very, very boring to eat plain rice, but I think all the viewers look at that and say, it's got to be other stuff that would be better.
It's not even just the spices. Yeah, things taste like crap, but you also figure you're sweating out there a lot. So having the salt for us,
that makes
better.
A lot of sense.
So we were thinking of it as more like a nutritional intake, not just as like a flavor, enhancer. It was like, that would help, but.
Well, and at least you tried to get blankets out of it. Like I said, Ogakor didn't even ask for blankets.
Yes. I mean, I Ogakor, and it's so funny how food deprived everybody thinks that they were then compared to seasons later on where it's like people don't even get rice. So it's like, but it definitely, I would not have done, spices and soup mix, because that's something that could also get damaged also. Like you definitely want shelter, warmth, something where you can sleep and be strong.
I was like, weren't they cold? And like you said, they do get more clothing now than they do, but you were freezing, so I have to believe that they were your beaches were not that far apart, right?
Yeah, they were 4 miles.
Oh, okay, but still the same.
So
so just other questions about how things have changed. Yeah, go ahead.
We didn't hear much about the fire in this episode. Has that now run out?
How they moved it from closer to the.
Or the forest fire.
Not the little fires, but the forest fire.
Oh, the forest fire. See, that was over by Ogakor's. We didn't really get much.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really get much at all. But actually, a funny story is we had some of our canoe broke and one of our pans disappeared. Okay. Yes. And we're going, when we carried all that crap from the base, we schlep it. It was a couple miles for each of us, and you're carrying all that stuff, and it's very cumbersome. And we get there. Well, one of our canoe either went flying away one time, and then whatever, we couldn't figure it out. Well, the cameras, because they didn't have drones back then doing video up above, it was the damn helicopter. Well, the helicopter had come down that, we were kind of getting in trouble because either our canoe just disappeared all the way or got completely damaged. They're like, you guys have to take better care. I'm like, it's the freaking helicopter. And they were like, oops. And so they had to go and give us back.
Oh, so they had to go find it, right?
And give us a new pan because they had just gotten down, so close that it just went flying away.
So that's got to also be the same problem. But I'm just thinking for a helicopter to go low enough, like I said, to the wind making the pan fly. I mean, that must have been, that's pretty close. I mean, that must have been
but I mean,
loud.
This one wasn't like one of the cast iron pans. It was like a little one, but they would also, like when we weren't there, or if we were leaving for a tribal council or leaving for something, like that's one of the differences between then and now was, that helicopter, you'd see that would be going on its side and kind of coming in that little creek bed, and it would, and those are the things that, that have changed and progressed.
Right. So what else is different? Like, let's throw it wide open. What else have you noticed?
The challenges, the traveling back and forth to the challenges.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you really were, at that point, walking back and forth to tribal council.
Yes.
And it was basically, so the tribal council was kind of in the middle, like it was a 2-mile walk for both tribes.
Yes, but we're not saying like this is a 2-mile walk from, we're just going to go take a path down the road. When we had to go to our tribal council, you had to climb up and down all the freaking like rock formations and everything. Well, going there, it was becoming dark, and then actually when we left, they ended up taking us in like a van part of the way because it was just too dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh, so even already in season 2, they started a little bit using the vehicles. Yeah, because it just makes it a lot easier for them.
Well, because it's the middle of the night. I mean, you're going to have, I'm surprised that they let us go and walk on these rock cliffs. Like, because if you see us when we're going to that first thing, you do one little slip, you break a freaking ankle.
Right.
I mean, for what? For just to have an opening shot? Like that doesn't go and mess with the integrity of the game or anything. I mean, it just that you're putting your people in danger.
Right.
I would be terrified in that area. By the way, I think you're very brave to have even stood perfectly.
Yeah. It's just an amazing setting, though, where they put tribal council in this season.
Yes.
So is hell, but I mean, it's not a place you want to go and visit just simply for the gorgeous scenery.
Well, you go out there on your little walkabout for a day or two with your little person. Okay, you got an idea of the Outback, but when they were doing it out there for a few weeks at a time, I think there were some other places to go.
Yeah,
because the Outback is kind of repetitious. Every morning we'd wake up and there'd be these beautiful spider webs all over. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous. But then you're like, okay, there's some deadly spiders in Australia. And then, you have your snakes and you have your gators and, you might get a rogue freaking kangaroo.
Did you see any gators? Did you see any crocodiles, alligators?
No, I mean, we didn't see them there. I'm trying to think. I think that by the time that when we were walking and there was cameras, crews and stuff, I think at that point there was just enough people that were there that, they don't like a lot of ruckus around them.
Right. So they stay away from.
Right. And we weren't really near where the saltwater crocodiles, there was no estuaries or anything. And those guys are a little bit more aggressive when they're smaller, I believe, than where we were. So, I mean, we were okay, but it's still, we definitely had some beasts out there.
Did you really?
Yeah. So any other stories like this that people may not have heard, or because it is so nice to talk to somebody from these early seasons, right? Because it is so different from the show that we watch now. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I mean, it's just from 20 years, but I don't remember. I mean, back then we had luxury items, and what
was your luxury item?
Scrabble,
really?
But we never played. Nobody ever wanted to play with me because I love playing.
I saw people playing Tavli, or what's the English word for it?
Backgammon?
Yeah, backgammon.
Yeah, backgammon. Yeah, that was on Ogacore. But what we did was we used the tile holders as our forks. So because there were some things that were poisonous out there to eat. So it's like, okay, what stick can you use? What can't you use? So those, it's like, okay, we'd stir the pot with and everything and use those. But good Lord.
Yeah.
But anyway, so when we won the chickens, and if I can find it, I don't know where the hell it is, but I saw it not too long ago. It's probably in my Survivor box, but there was a pen that a crew member had dropped.
Really?
Yes. And then there was some paper that was attached to one of the things that we were reading. And so I was writing when I was out there in tiny, tiny little microscopic little font. But I wrote like a little journal just for a couple of days because, it's all I had at my access. But it was cool because when I was reading it, it was like, oh my gosh, look at this. And it was like me giving myself a little pep talk and then just describing the area. And I mean, it was beautiful out there. I mean, it just, there's so much that you do learn about yourself, and it's just to be on the other side of the world and see things and just a different way of life. And because after I got voted off, I went backpacking.
Right, so I was going to ask you also, so I know with obviously the modern seasons, right? Anybody who was eliminated before the merge, now they take you all somewhere on a trip. So what happened in Australian Outback? What did they do?
I got screwed.
Okay.
So because I didn't make part of the jury, they were having everybody kind of go do something, but everybody was going to fly back to the US on the same date. Well, we have handlers is what they call them. And so it's like, after I got voted out, I stayed a night or two at Ponderosa there. And that's where the Ponderosa name came from, because it was the original Ponderosa. It was like a bed and breakfast type thing. And it was called Ponderosa. So everyone subsequently was called Ponderosa. I never knew
where that name comes. So so Ponderosa, Kim, it's basically normal, like now in Fiji, it's a hotel that where the crew stays, and then you stay there also before the game. And if you get voted out, you go. So they always call it Ponderosa wherever in the world it is. But I did not know until today. I was always wondering where that name came from.
Yes,
so that's the actual place in the Outback happened to be called Ponderosa.
Yes, and so they're going to Ponderosa. So so when I got sent there, my handler apparently was a pot smoking drunk, and they wanted me to leave before the next person got voted out. So they basically took me to a bus station, gave me $2,000 in cash, and said, meet us back at the airport on such and such a date. Here's your plane ticket.
Oh, wow.
So you're talking, I had 3 weeks where nobody in the world knew where I was.
Yeah, I mean, that's just
irresponsible.
Right, because it's the opposite now. I understand you go on these trips and they take you on a very nice trip, but they have eyes on you.
Yes, they have to know that you're not being mugged and murdered and raped and pillaged or
spoiling the season, right? So you're thinking your handler, this was not what's supposed to happen either, but your handler just said,
that changed after. Like, I was staying at hostels. I remember, so it was my 28th birthday out there, and I was staying in a hostel. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they literally put me on a bus, and when I got to my destination, but the money that they gave me was for my transportation, food, for hotels. It wasn't enough money. I was staying in $5 a night hostels. There was me, and I went to this one hostel at the bus station when they said, here, take the bus, and my handler drops me off at a bus stop. I go to this hostel. Well, the women's rooms are all filled up. They have nothing. There's nothing around me, and it's like in the middle of the night, 2:00 in the morning. And this woman that runs the hostel goes, I will let you stay in the men's room, but it was a bunk that had like 15 men in it. There's no, and she let me go there because she felt so badly for me. And I mean, that's a liability issue. God forbid something had happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, so I had found some other arrangements back then. One of the guys that was doing local security at the Ponderosa, because you have people that are going around. They didn't want they didn't want you talking to people on the street, because they would tell by your accent that you're not a local. And there was all that stuff for like the National Enquirer and People magazine trying to find out about where Survivor was.
Right. So then the fact, like I said, that they dropped you off at a bus depot and said, we'll see you in 3 weeks is unbelievable.
Yes. So anyway, one of the guys that was like my handler there, he said, hey, if you run into anything, I'm going to give you the phone number of my girlfriend. And he did. And thank God, because after a couple of days of me wandering around like a ping pong, I said, screw this shit. And I called her. But I even went to a bar, and I remember they were having a wet t-shirt contest. And I'm like, I'm really tempted. And then there were some Kiwis, some of the rugby players from New Zealand. And, hey, American, I'll give you $50 for your panties. All right. And I took off my panties and I sold because they don't know, I'm just there on holiday, I sold a pair of green little thong panties that I bought at Rainbow Shop for 99 cents on Long Island. And it had a little green frog on it. I sold it for $50 US. And I was like, woohoo! It was the best.
These days, you could probably sell them for who sold their underwear from Idol the Idols for like. Didn't Dean sell his underwear for like $700 on eBay?
I don't know.
See, you should have held out for more. I'm just joking.
Do you think anybody wants underwear from the Circle?
They might. Yeah, I have Savage's panties are being sold. He left them there, and then Keith Nail was wearing Savage's undies in Cambodia. This isn't a spoiler, but they are now up for sale for Give Kids the World. So if anybody wants to buy them, they're out there because I brought them, donated them.
Give kids the world or give kids a disease. If you
That's funny. Exactly.
Yes, it's disturbing. I mean,
there are a lot of panty sniffers out there.
I do understand soiled underwear does have quite a niche market.
It does. It does, apparently. It does. It was
I've not looked into it in any detail.
Well, back then we would get because there wasn't the social media. I think MySpace was it that was just coming about. So we would get, or I would get anyway, crates of mail from fans at my house. And I mean, literally fan mail, from marriage proposals to people sending me diets, telling me how fat I was, to because my last name's Kappenberg. Oh, I have a Jewish son. He would love to meet you so he can keep it together. And I'm like, I'm not a member of the tribe, but I love you anyway. I don't care. I've dated lots of Jewish people. I'm from Long Island. Half of my boyfriends were Jewish, but apparently, since I wasn't Jewish, she didn't want me after that.
So then how is that different from, again, you're on Second Chances and you do have social media? Did that make it more difficult?
No, I think because we're more accessible now with social media. We, as in reality TV people, like someone can go and shoot me in, a message through Facebook or Messenger, and it's like, hey, I'm a fan, and you can be in touch with people all around the world. And so you don't have the stalkers that you would. I mean, it's like, is that like the thing about Survivor back then, especially, is like people really thought that they knew you because you weren't playing a character on a TV, and reality TV was so new. It's like people be like, oh, you're Kimmi and you like root beer, because they would have all your stats and stuff like in magazines and what you did or where you went to school. And it's like people be calling you, just random people would find you. And it was weird because now they're calling you on your home phone and they have your home address. Now nobody gives a shit about that because they'll just go ahead and be like, oh, I can message her on Facebook. And
that's interesting. But people really did bother. They did track you down, found your home address, all that.
Oh, yeah.
So, same thing. Kimmi, the same thing still happens. I've had some very strange experiences. I just say hello. I mean, it beats trying to sort of stopping the waiter and trying to find out where he or she has been. What I will talk to anybody. So now, thankfully, they come and talk to me. So it's their problem if they stalk me.
It's very flattering.
Engagement conversation.
It's flattering and it's nice. And again, when I was single in my 20s in New York, I didn't care. It's creepy when I have my little boys that are 7 years old, and you're trying to come after like kids. I was getting things on like I had at one point, like 5,000 friends on Facebook. Well, after a few people saying, "Oh, your kids are you're the worst mother in the world. You should rot in hell, die in a car. Somebody should steal your kids from you." And you actually get those messages on Facebook, or people that are your Facebook friends, but they're not, they're hack accounts. And saying that, it's like, screw that. Sorry, I'm not going to be friends with anybody on Facebook anymore. And my Facebook friends are maybe 50 to 100 are Survivor related, like fans or people that I've met at charity events or something. Some fans that I have met, and some that I've been friends with for 20 years since Australia. I mean, one of my good friends is a fan that I've only met him in person once, but we talk all the time. He's like one of my very good friends.
It is extraordinary how life throws people into your path.
Yes.
Particularly as a result of this sort of thing. But it's but it's disturbing as well.
Yes. But I do like the media now of
thing.
Pardon me?
It's not natural in a sense, but then what is natural really?
Right. It's becoming more natural, and it's kind of nice actually to have that alternate way of communicating with people without them being right in your personal space.
Right, because that's the thing, you can interact with fans but keep them at a distance, which is exactly what I think most people would want to do.
And they don't need to know my phone number.
Right.
They don't need to stalk me and find out my house address. Oh, they found my name on Facebook. Okay, great. You can message me.
Right. It's the same thing with me. It would never have occurred to me to like I said, actually stalk somebody in the real life. But I feel like if you have been on a show and you are on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, then you are opening up that part of your life.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, that's how I found Tim, because I was doing my first podcast was about the circle, and I reached out to him, and he came on, and then he wanted to watch Survivor. We have never met in person. I mean, I'm hoping that, at some point when all this COVID stuff is over and we can all fly, we will actually meet. But yeah.
Oh, great. And then he can come to Florida.
We're going to bring him to Hearts of Reality.
Yay!
And discover the heartland of the states. But no, look, in my case, I toyed with politics. I still am in sort of academic life, so I'm constantly meeting people. But I find I did find the reality TV thing. I have had stalkers in the past. I remember having one extraordinary stalker who turned up at my front door wet in the rain, and I opened the front door to go out, and there she was, and she's, "Hello, I was just passing," and she was completely drunk.
That's a little creepy.
And I just thought, this is extraordinary, quite extraordinary. But it's just. I just think if you want to have good experiences, you have to allow for the possibility that some rather dodgy ones.
Yes. I mean, but I think that's okay. It's what makes the world go round.
Oh, I do hope so. Sorry, we still have we got through the program?
I think more or less. The only other question I was going to ask was, so we get to tribal council, the votes, everybody votes for Kimmi except you voted for Jeff, and you said something. You said basically this should really be for Alicia,
right?
But somebody, I guess, told you to vote for Jeff. And then I'm planning this because this is going to become very important in a few episodes. I'm just going to put a pin in that. The fact that you voted for Jeff actually will affect a lot of what happens in this season. So do you know how that came about?
Yeah, well, it was just when we were walking, and it's like, okay, and I was talking to some people and say, I know my head's on the chopping block. And I think it was actually, it was either Roger or Mike. I'm like, I know that it's, you guys are going after me. So is it better to go for Jeff or Alicia? and it was like Jeff would be a better choice.
Right.
And I was like, okay. But Jeff was also, because the first episode, Deb voted for Jeff also.
Oh, okay. So it's not just you.
Yes, it's a culmination.
Right. Has anybody voted for Alicia yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think
Not
so.
yet.
No, because it was just the first
voted for Alicia
two
on the
tribal
first-
councils that we had for Kucha at that point.
Yeah, Alicia is not one of my favorite people. I think I didn't like her argument at all.
She's a little bit more abrasive than. Oh wait, hang on a second. Stop.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. I don't know if you can hear that, but the Golden Girls theme song is like my best friend's ringtone. And so the Golden Girls was just in my ears.
I heard something. I couldn't figure out exactly what it was.
That's what it was. But how do I turn it off? Go away.
So I was going to say, we'll let you talk to your friend. Is it for both of you? Is there anything else? Tim, is there anything else you wanted to ask? Kim, is there anything else you wanted to say?
I want to get Tim's link to his little show so I can watch.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it because you're going to give me your email afterwards or your details, and then
Great.
Yay!
But we're also going to share.
Maybe we can have another. We can get you to come back at some point, and
yes.
Yeah,
and is wine acceptable next time? Because I can totally get into this day drinking thing.
I mean, I've been knocking back tea as if there's no tomorrow.
I do the tea too.
Day drinking is fine. Look, certain people, one glass of wine loosens people up. 4 or 5 glasses often doesn't make for a great podcast. But
in the English language, Karen, in the English language, the most quoted line in the Bible is a line from a letter of St. Paul to Timothy, and it's take a little wine for thy stomach's sake. Which I think is very valuable advice, really.
I think the Baptists should know more about that.
However, it does go on. It does go on, and the line continues. Which I was going to edit, and I wasn't going to tell you this bit because I think it has relevance to today's episode. It's take a little wine for thy stomach's sake, and also have a bath.
Hey, look, I'm going to take some and be in the bath. I would fully support both of those as long as there's no leeches. Cheers to you.
Oh, I have a jacuzzi, and I have been known to have a glass of wine. So you can both at the same time.
Excellent.
So can we just tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
I am on my Facebook. I do Kimmi Kappenberg-Bailey, and then I guess I'm just Kimmi Kappenberg on my Twitter. I'm going back to that. I had taken a time off because I forgot my login. So I recently found it again. Like I was dicking around because I have children that can set me up with stuff, but they will not let me have their, what's the photo one? Instagram. They're like, we're not going to let you do our Instagram.
I don't know how to send direct messages on Twitter, so I may have difficulty sending you a message. But
just send me a DM, email, a text, a messenger on Facebook.
If you have any trouble, I'll set you up, Tim. So Tim,
thank you.
Also, let me just do 2 minutes of housekeeping, Timmy, and then we're going to let you go. Tim, what about you? Give everybody your social media handles.
So I am on Instagram, and I'm on Professor_Tim_Wilson, and you can find me. And I sort of say and do lots and lots of things. In fact, I put a little this afternoon just before watching this episode, saying that I was looking forward to watching it, and then I find out who our guest was going to be. I had no idea. It was so
yay!
I was thinking, oh my god! Hope it's not going to be this person. Hope it's not going to be that person. And I was completely surprised.
Yay!
Yeah, Chris Nixon actually asked at the beginning of the show. He said, was it surreal to have watch an episode that's 20 years old and then immediately talk to the person who went home?
Really bizarre. Really bizarre.
Yeah.
It's For me, Kimmi, it's like it's just happened. So I'm a little bit starstruck.
Oh yeah, for you it would be because you just saw it. It's all new to you.
This is one of those wonderful moments when I really do feel like Doctor Who, having just popped out.
Say hi.
Oh, wonderful! Hello, you darling. Hello.
Oh, and we've just lost Kimmi. All right. Well, let me just do the last bit of housekeeping. If she comes back, I'll bring her back in. But so coming up on Survivor NSFW, here she is. She's back.
I have a pit, my pit and my pug. They got to go potty.
Okay. So I'm just going to tell everybody what's coming up on Survivor NSFW. Last night we spoke to Adam Poach. I think I pronounced that correctly. Thursday we'll be live after the election with Crazy James of Big Brother 9, and next Monday we have Scott Long. Also, if you are enjoying our programming, please consider becoming a patron. If you check out adfreensfw.com, you get all of our programming without ads, often earlier than other people. We have a Facebook group, we have Zooms, we have all kinds of fun. So please consider that. Next week, Tim and I are going to be joined by Kathy Sleckman of Survivor Micronesia. So that will be fun. Yeah, I don't think Kathy's done a lot of press recently. No, this is not somebody you know. This is somebody who plays in a much later season, who you'll get to meet tomorrow. So please hope to see all of you there next week, 12 noon Eastern, 5 p.m. GMT. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next week on Survivor NSFW.